Long ago, in a quiet village nestled between forests and rivers, there lived a man named Ronan. He was tall, strong, and admired for his tireless work in the fields. Yet, what people loved most about him was his heart. Ronan carried a warmth that lit up every gathering, but no one felt it more deeply than his gentle wife, Ilara. Their love was the kind that neighbors whispered about, steady, glowing, and full of hope. When Ilara discovered she was carrying a child, Ronan's joy spilled over like a rushing stream. He sang loudly at night, danced beneath the moon, and promised to love both his wife and their unborn child with a devotion that would never fade. But life is often cruel. When the child came into the world, Ilara's spirit left it. Ilara's death shattered Ronan into 1,000 silent pieces. Yet when he gazed into the tiny eyes of his daughter, he saw a spark that gave him reason to live. He named her Lyra, for she was his song after the storm. Lyra's coos filled the air of their small home, but Ronan's heart still ached each night. 6 months passed, and the emptiness beside him in bed became unbearable. Whispers spread when Ronan married again so quickly. His closest friend, Torin, confronted him one afternoon. "Why, Ronan? Ilara's grave is still fresh." Ronan lowered his head, his voice soft but steady. "Lyra needs a mother. I cannot raise her alone." So entered Celine, a woman whose beauty shone like polished stone. Her skin glowed in the sun, and her sharp eyes drew admiration wherever she went. But beauty, as the elders often warned, can hide shadows. At first, Celine played the role of a loving stepmother. She smiled sweetly at Lyra, cooing over her tiny hands. Yet in quiet moments, her true heart revealed itself. "This child cries too much," she muttered with annoyance, covering her ears. "I didn't marry you to be a nurse." Ronan, blinded by fear of raising his daughter alone, ignored the signs. He believed Celine's heart would soften. He was wrong. One hot afternoon, Celine suggested a walk to the river. "The air will do Lyra good," she said with a smile that never reached her eyes. Ronan agreed, carrying his daughter as her tiny laughter bubbled in the breeze. The river shimmered under the sun, curling like silver serpents through the rocks. Birds sang, and the cool wind whispered through the trees. Ronan rested under a tree, cradling Lyra in his arms. Celine's face remained still, but inside her heart boiled with bitterness. She did not see Lyra as a child, only as a burden, a shadow of Ilara. Celine stood, stretching with false sweetness. "Ronan, I need herbs from the bushes nearby. Please fetch some for me. I'll watch Lyra." Ronan, trusting his wife, nodded and vanished into the forest. His footsteps faded, leaving only the rush of the river. The moment he disappeared, Celine's face hardened. She snatched Lyra, walked to the edge of the water, and without hesitation, flung the baby into the roaring current. The infant's cry rose once, swallowed by the river's thunder, then silence. Celine tore her wrapper, rubbed dirt on her arms, and screamed as though tragedy had struck her. Ronan came running back, herbs in hand, his face pale with dread. "What happened?" he shouted. Celine wailed, clutching her chest. "The river, it took her. She slipped from my hands. I tried, Ronan, I tried to save her." Ronan fell to his knees, his world crumbling. His chest heaved with guilt. "If only I hadn't left," he whispered. He stared at the rushing water, but the river kept its secrets. Only the trees knew the crime. Only the spirits carried the truth. Days crawled by, heavy with grief. Ronan wandered like a ghost, refusing food and rest. Celine pretended to comfort him, her arms soft but her soul restless. Yet guilt never hides for long. At night, she heard the soft cry of a baby. She would wake, drenched in sweat, searching for the sound, only to find silence. Still, the crying returned night after night, haunting her steps. One evening, when the moon floated full above the trees, Ronan sat by the river. His tears fell quietly into the earth when suddenly he heard it, a faint cry. His body froze. The sound grew clearer, pulling him closer to the water's edge. There, glistening in the moonlight, floated a tiny bracelet, the one Ilara had woven for Lyra before she died. Ronan picked it up, his hands trembling. His heart twisted. Could it be? Was the river speaking? He clutched the bracelet as if it held the voice of his child, refusing to let go. Ronan returned home that night with the bracelet clutched in his fist, its metal digging into his palm like a silent accusation. Celine sat by the fire, humming as she mended his torn shirt. When he entered, she looked up and offered a forced smile. Ronan didn't return it. Instead, he dropped the bracelet onto the table with a thud. "I found this by the river," he said, his voice low, his eyes clouded with suspicion. Celine froze for a moment before forcing a laugh. "And so? Is Lyra the only child in the village who wore a bracelet? You're letting grief make you foolish." Her tone cut him like a blade. Ronan rubbed his temples, torn between doubt and the gnawing pain in his heart. That night, sleep refused to claim him. Every time he closed his eyes, he heard Lyra's faint cry in the rush of the river. The bracelet burned against his thoughts like a coal that would not die. By morning, the storm in his chest was louder than ever. Just as the sun rose, Torin stormed into Ronan's compound. His eyes blazed with anger. "How could you be so blind?" he shouted. "Do you think the river swallowed a 6-month-old baby in broad daylight? You're a fool, Ronan." Ronan's face flushed red. His chair crashed to the ground as he stood. "Get out of my house," he roared. "You're jealous because my wife is more beautiful than yours. That's why you poisoned my mind with lies." Torin's fists clenched. "Jealous? You're blind, Ronan. Blind. One day the truth will strike you harder than my fists ever could." The two men lunged at each other. Dust rose as they wrestled like wild animals, fists flying, rolling across the ground. Neighbors gathered, trying desperately to separate them. But Ronan's rage was a river in flood, unstoppable. Finally, he shoved Torin away, panting heavily. "Never step into my house again," Ronan hissed. Torin dusted himself off, bruised but unbroken. He pointed at Celine, who stood in the doorway with a sly grin hidden beneath her calm face. "Mark my words, Ronan," Torin spat. "The truth will not stay buried." That night, the crying returned. Celine woke trembling, her heart racing. "Did you hear that?" she whispered. Ronan turned away from her, his face blank. "I didn't hear anything," he said coldly. But in truth he had. The sound burrowed into his chest, whispering doubts that refused to fade. Years slipped by. 5 of them, heavy and restless. Ronan worked harder than ever, burying his pain in the soil of his fields. But his eyes carried a sadness that no labor could wash away. Celine grew restless too, for though she longed for power more than motherhood, the shame of being barren gnawed at her pride. Each month passed without a child, and fear haunted her heart. Would Ronan take another wife? One evening, Celine sat by the fire, tears streaking her face. Ronan approached, concerned. "Why are you crying?" he asked gently. She wiped her cheeks, embarrassed. "I'm afraid," she confessed. "Afraid you'll leave me because I cannot give you children. What if you find another woman?" Ronan held her hands tightly. "Never. You are my wife, Celine. With or without children, I will stand by you." She smiled weakly, soothed for the moment, though deep inside she knew promises were fragile things. The sun blazed one hot afternoon, the village alive with laughter and work. Celine lay under the shade, groaning dramatically. "I'm too weak to fetch water today. Please, Ronan, go for me." Without hesitation, he picked up his calabash and headed toward the river. The path was familiar, yet that day, something in the air felt heavy, as though the trees themselves were waiting. At the water's edge, Ronan bent to fill his calabash. Suddenly, a soft voice called from behind him. "Sir, can you help me, please?" Ronan turned quickly. Standing a few feet away was a little girl, no older than 5. Her hair curled wildly, her dress was torn, and her large brown eyes shimmered with tears. "Who are you?" Ronan asked gently, rising to his feet. The girl twisted her small fingers nervously. I don't know," she whispered. "I don't remember my name, my village, or my parents. I am lost." Ronan's heart tightened. How could a child so young be wandering alone by the river? He scanned the area, expecting someone to appear, but no one came. Only the river whispered. He knelt before her, lowering his voice. "You remember nothing at all?" The girl shook her head, tears spilling down her cheeks. Ronan's chest ached. The memory of Lyra's tiny hands and soft giggles flooded back. His throat tightened, but he forced his voice to remain steady. "I cannot leave you here," he said gently. "Come with me. I'll take care of you." Slowly, The girl slipped her tiny hand into his, as though it had always belonged there. Ronan picked up his calabash and began the walk home, her small fingers clutching his own. When Celine saw them approaching, her face twisted with confusion before settling into a forced smile. "Who is this?" she asked, her voice dripping with sweetness that felt sharp. Ronan explained what had happened, how he'd found the girl by the river with no memory. "I couldn't abandon her," he said firmly. Celine's smile faltered into a frown, but she said nothing more. That night, Ronan gave the girl a small mat by the fire. She curled up quietly, breathing softly as sleep claimed her. Watching her, Ronan felt something stir within him, a piece of his soul that had long been missing. Celine, however, could not rest. She lay awake, staring into the dark, unease prickling her skin. There was something about the child, the eyes, the face, that unsettled her. The following days turned into weeks, and the girl blended into their home with surprising ease. She was quiet yet watchful, her big brown eyes always observing. Ronan grew attached, treating her like his own child. He gave her a name, Mira. "You are hope to me," he said softly one night. "A light in my darkness." Mira accepted the name with a gentle nod. Mira was not like other children. She rarely spoke, but when she did, her words carried weight far beyond her years. "Daddy," she once asked while watching the sunset, "why do people hurt those they should love most?" Ronan's chest tightened, but he brushed the question aside, telling her she was too young to understand. Yet her eyes lingered on him with quiet knowing, as though she already did. Her presence eased his grief, and though his field still yielded little, having Mira around filled the hollow in his soul. One evening, as Ronan mended a farming tool, Mira sat quietly beside him. Suddenly, she turned her head and spoke softly. "Daddy, I don't want you to call me Mira anymore." Ronan paused, startled. "Why, my dear? Don't you like the name?" The girl shook her head, her eyes steady. "Call me Lyra." The tool slipped from Ronan's trembling hands, clattering to the ground. His heart pounded as he stared at her. What did you say?" His voice cracked. "Call me Lyra," she repeated, calm and unwavering, as if the name had always been hers. Ronan's breath grew heavy, memories flooding him. "Lyra was my daughter's name," he whispered. "She was taken by the river when she was 6 months old." His voice trailed off, thick with grief. Myra's gaze did not waver. "I know everything that happened," she said gently. "I know the day you fetched herbs. I know Celine told you the river took me. I know about Torin. I know about the bracelet." Ronan's blood turned cold. His eyes widened, his lips trembling. "How do you know these things?" he whispered. The girl, "No, Lyra," placed her tiny hand on his chest, right over his heart. "Don't be afraid, Daddy. Now that you have me, blessings will follow you. Your crops will grow. You will prosper. The darkness will leave." Ronan could not speak. His throat was dry, his chest rising and falling with panic and hope intertwined. Her words echoed in his mind as he sat staring at the flames that night, his thoughts tangled like nets in a stormy sea. The next morning, Ronan went to his farm as usual, but what he saw left him frozen in disbelief. The dry, withered crops that had refused to grow for years now stood tall and green. The soil, once cracked and lifeless, was soft and rich with life. He touched the leaves with trembling hands, his eyes wide. This is impossible," he whispered. The farm was flourishing as if touched by unseen hands. His heart pounded with both awe and fear. Could it be true? Could Lyra's return have brought this miracle? He ran home, nearly stumbling in his haste. Bursting into the house breathless, he found Mira, no Lyra, sitting by the fire humming softly. "It's true," he gasped. "The crops, they are alive again. They are thriving." Lyra looked up, her eyes glowing with calm certainty. "I told you, Daddy. I brought blessings." Ronan fell to his knees before her, tears streaming down his face. He held her close, his heart torn between joy and confusion. Was this truly his lost daughter, or some spirit wearing her face? That evening, as the fire crackled low, Ronan wrestled with his thoughts. Finally, he turned to Celine. "I need to tell you something," he began carefully. She glanced at him, irritated. "What now?" she snapped, not bothering to hide her impatience. Ronan cleared his throat. Mira does not want to be called Mira anymore. She says her name is Lyra. The moment Celine heard the name, her face twisted. Her voice rose like a storm. That little brat, she shouted, trembling with fury. How dare she mock us like this? How dare she call herself by that name? Then suddenly she began to cry. Oh, my sweet baby Lyra, she wailed, falling to the ground. How could this child torment me so? How could she steal the name of the daughter I lost? Her sobs filled the house until, in a sudden shift, she stood, her eyes blazing with bitterness. We must drive her out. I won't have her in this house. Ronan's face hardened. No, I will not send her away, he said firmly. Until I find her real parents, she is my daughter. Celine's face burned red with anger. If you keep her, then I will leave this house, she screamed. I will not live under the same roof with that cursed child. Ronan looked her in the eyes and said coldly, then go. What use is your staying here when you have given me no child? His words sliced deeper than any knife. Celine's mouth fell open in shock. Tears spilled down her face as she cried. So you choose a stranger over me? After everything I've done for you? After all these years as your wife? Ronan remained silent, his silence louder than any answer. Celine wiped her tears, but her face grew hard. Fine, she spat. I will not leave my marriage for her. But if you won't send her away, I will make this house so unbearable for her that she will beg to leave. Ronan's voice was sharp as steel. Don't you dare. If you harm her in any way, I will make sure you regret ever knowing me. Without waiting for her reply, he walked away, leaving her fuming. Later that night, he found Lyra sitting quietly in her small room. Sitting beside her, he spoke softly. Lyra, whatever happens, know that I am here for you. I will always protect you. The girl looked at him with calm eyes, her small lips curving into a faint smile. Don't worry, Daddy, she whispered. I can deal with her. Ronan's heart skipped a beat. Her words were calm, steady, almost chilling. How could a 5-year-old speak like that? In the days that followed, Celine kept her promise. She turned the house into a battlefield. She refused to cook when Lyra was near, poured dirty water where she sat, and hurled insults every time she passed. But Lyra never cried. She never complained. She walked through it all with a quiet strength, as though the cruelty could not touch her. Celine grew frustrated. One day she screamed, This is my house. You don't belong here. Lyra turned to Celine calmly, her gaze sharp and unflinching. This was my house before you came, she said quietly. The words sank deep, striking Celine like a spear. Her heart raced. Fear crept into her bones though she forced herself to stand tall. That night, when the fire burned bright, Celine still felt cold. The whispers began again, soft cries of a baby, faint yet piercing. She clutched her ears, but the sound lingered. Shadows moved along the walls though no one was there. Her sleep became a torment, haunted by the cries only she could hear. Ronan noticed her restlessness. What troubles you, Celine? He asked one morning. She forced a smile, her eyes ringed with exhaustion. Nothing, she lied. But inside, terror was eating her alive. The child's presence was suffocating her. Every time she looked into Lyra's eyes, she felt accused. She began to wonder if this girl was truly a child or something else, something sent to punish her. The unease turned into hatred, and the hatred burned hotter each day. One evening, Celine cornered Ronan. We cannot keep her here, she demanded. She is not ordinary. Can't you see it? Her eyes, her words, she is cursed. She will destroy us. Ronan shook his head slowly, his voice calm but firm. She is my daughter now. I don't care what you think she is. She stays. Celine's rage boiled over, but for the first time, her anger met no fear in Ronan's face. He was resolute. This girl had filled the emptiness in him, and nothing would take her away again. Days stretched into months. The farm flourished beyond belief, yielding crops so rich that neighbors whispered Ronan was blessed by the gods. His life, once marked by loss, now glowed with unexpected abundance. Yet inside the house, the tension grew unbearable. Celine's hatred twisted her into something unrecognizable. She plotted silently, watching Lyra's every step, waiting for a chance to rid herself of the child who had stolen her place in Ronan's heart. But Lyra was no ordinary child. She sensed the malice, meeting it with calmness that unsettled Celine even more. Sometimes, when Celine shouted at her, Lyra would simply smile. A smile that felt too wise, too knowing. "Why do you smile at me like that?" Celine once snapped. Lyra's voice was soft but steady. "Because I know the truth. And the truth always wins." Those words lingered like a curse, echoing in Celine's mind long after Lyra had walked away. One stormy night, the whispers grew louder than ever. Celine bolted upright, drenched in sweat. The cries were no longer faint. They filled the room. She stumbled into the darkness, only to see the faint outline of a baby's form near the riverbank outside. Her breath caught. "No, no," she screamed, clutching her chest. She fell to the ground, trembling as the cries grew sharper, surrounding her, choking her. Ronan rushed out, finding her collapsed and gasping. "What is it?" he demanded. Celine's eyes rolled with terror. The river, the child she knows. From that night, Celine's spirit never knew peace again. Fear ate her from the inside, and her beauty faded into a shadow of itself. Meanwhile, Ronan grew stronger, his fields flourishing, his heart steady beside Lyra. The villagers spoke of the strange girl who had brought prosperity, some whispering she was a blessing, others claiming she was a spirit returned. Ronan never cared. All he knew was that his daughter had come back to him, and with her, hope had returned. Years later, Ronan would often sit beneath the same tree by the river, Lyra's laughter dancing around him like music. He remembered Alara, his first love, and the pain of losing her. He remembered Lyra's cries in the river, the bracelet that whispered the truth, and the day a lost little girl returned to his life. Life had tested him with fire, but it had also given him back what he thought was gone forever. Celine remained in the house, a bitter shadow of herself, haunted by her deeds. But Ronan no longer lived in grief. He lived in light. The light of a daughter reborn. The child who was both his curse and his blessing. The child who turned his mourning into miracle.
Every story carries a lesson. If this one moved you, tap subscribe so you never miss the next twist in the journey.